pleased was so many managers weren't able, and when I left, still weren't able to really pull together a good performance review for their employee. I know people don't like to talk about performance reviews, and they often don't like performance reviews, but they can be so constructive if done well to helping an employee succeed. If you can constructively let them know in a very correct way what they should work on, it can be a valuable tool. And I saw so many managers that were just want to make them feel good, and off they go. And we spent a lot of time trying to coach how to do a good performance review. And some folks just never seem to get it. So watch for that. Except for performance review if you're on the senior staff. If you're working for the president of the company, I don't know how most senior staffs around Brainerd work, but I know out there, you're on the staff of the president, you're the VP in charge of this, you would set your goals for the year against the company goals and the company financial goals. And early on, I've been going to the president saying, well, about 6-9 months through the year, we're getting close to the end of the year, I think I'm doing pretty good against my goals of the company and financially. How am I doing, boss? Oh, you must be doing okay, because I'm not hearing any complaints. And if I don't hear complaints, then you must be doing okay. And that was it. I never asked him again after that. Because the message I got was, if he needs to coach me, he doesn't need me. So I never asked him again. And I knew, and he knew if I was hitting my goals or not. I didn't have to ask him. So at that level, performance reviews are a whole different ballgame. Control of designs at geographic sites. When we were small, everything was done in San Diego. And our family jewels and intellectual property in San Diego. Then, like I mentioned, we had 20 sites worldwide, two big design centers in India, and a big one on the East Coast, and a big one in San Diego. We set them up, they're very capable. We wouldn't give them a big job, because we had to keep the family jewels and IP in San Diego so nobody could steal, it couldn't be copied. So we had these very capable groups out there getting these piecemeal jobs that after a year or so, they were not happy at all. We can do more, give us more. Was it a legitimate concern for us not to give them a big job and give them what I'll call the family IP? No, for us, it was not a legitimate concern. And that's because our IP is very high technology, integrated circuit semiconductor technology. Somebody could steal our design, and by the time they really got it working, it would be a year or two down the road, and we'd have our next generation out the door. And we learned it the hard way. We had all these big design centers with capable people complaining we weren't giving them enough. And in come these big companies that wanted to do it themselves, create their own CDMA. Nokia comes in for one, builds a huge plant in San Diego, steals some of our best engineers. We're not going to pay you license fees. We're going to do it ourselves because we've got the money and we can do it. So we watched them for 2 years, spend hundreds of millions of dollars, get something working. By the time they got it out, we're like a generation or two ahead of them. They finally quit and I walk out. At that point, we realized for our technology and the kind of IP we have, having it copied is not yes, somebody could try to copy it. It's not going to pay off. But there's other kinds of IP, you can imagine there's easy things to knock off in some businesses and you don't want that stolen. But in this case, this was not a legitimate concern. And by the way, when we started giving them those complete big jobs to do, their morale and energy levels really went up, and it was great to see. So those are some of the things I ran into. I went through them fast. I don't want to take up too much time. I want to hold to my schedule or actually beat it. So that's kind of some of the takeaways that I wanted to talk about tonight. But I wanted to leave you with how's the company doing today. So they just finished their fiscal year, end of September 2012. Let me go back to revenues here. Oops, that's wrong. So $6.5 billion in 2008 with 25% operating profit. This fiscal year, they just closed $19 billion in revenue. They shipped 600 million chipsets, or 1 billion chips. Their total cash and marketable securities in the bank, this is cash, $27 billion. Their earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization this year, $7 billion. After taking out a few things from that, free cash left over, $5 billion. That went into this $26.8 billion in the bank. So they're doing extremely well. And how come people can't catch us? Just copy the design and catch us? I say less, I'm not a work group anymore. R&D expenditures for fiscal year 2012, $4 billion. So try to catch somebody that's staying somewhat on top of their game with good engineers spending $4 billion a year. They're not going to get caught. How much longer are they going to be around? I haven't a clue. Because what happens usually in situations like this is something comes out of left field. It's brand new and better. Blow them out of the water. When that's going to happen, I haven't a clue, because their technology blew TMA and GSM out of the water. It took 5 years to convince people of that. Something will come out of left field and blow them out of the water. But I'm hoping it'll be another 5 or 10 years before that happens. So that's all I had. I want to thank you for letting me share. I'll be available for questions after that being mentioned. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over. Thank you very much.
I'd like to talk a little bit about how an ongoing company added a new product a few years ago when I was with them. Business was going as normal, producing the products that we had a need for a product. My name is Bud Pierce. I'm retired, been up here in that manner for about 5 years. And what I'm going to tell you about happened just prior to my departure. So most of the production of the new product took place in my absence. I started out with a BS degree in industrial administration that I gained from Iowa State. I started with International Harvester when there was an International Harvester. It was a large company with well over 100,000 people building a lot of products. The product line I was involved in was trucks. And you'll find that my background has been associated with trucks or truck-type components ever since. And my entire background has been in manufacturing. I spent 14 years with International Harvester and left as an operations manager for a stamping point in Ohio. Then left and went to a company called Brainerd, which is in Rochester, Minnesota, with the GF Business Equipment Company, and they were cab manufacturers and computer cabinetry manufacturers. Cabs being operator enclosures for highway and off-highway kinds of equipment. Their largest customer was Caterpillar, and they produced probably 20 different cabs for Caterpillar. They also produced a number of cabs for other companies as well, all the same type of manufacturing company. So large OEMs. I was left there as the director of manufacturing. I went to the McLaughlin Body Company, which is located in the Quad Cities, which includes the Iowa and Illinois area, cities like Moline, Illinois, Rock Island, Davenport, Iowa, and so on. We always call them Quad Cities, but there were a lot more cities there than before. Just about 400,000 to 450,000. The McLaughlin Body Company is an Illinois company. The office in Moline and 2 operating manufacturing operations, one in East Moline and one in Rock Island. And we produced cabs primarily for companies like John Deere. If you've ever seen John Deere Combine, we make a cab for it. We would build it to their line set, we would put it on a truck, back it up to their assembly line. They'd roll it off, mount it, hook up the brakes, the lights, drive the combine away. So it was a totally completed cab. We also sold grain crabs the list goes on. And we made stainless steel cement mixing cabs for 2 different companies. One of the product lines was a military cab we produced for a company out of Texas. It started out as Stewart and Stevenson, and they ended up being purchased by Armor Holdings. And when I left, it was owned by Armor Holdings, and that's who we were selling to. The situation was we had the ongoing products, all of the various companies that we were selling to, and we were selling the military cab to Armor Holdings. And then they had a need for a new cab, because after all, our soldiers were being blown up by roadside bombs. So we took we had a light gauge standing formed sheet metal cab that we would spot weld and make weld together with some projection weld for weldments and other parts. And we needed to change that to a different cab that was made out of armor. So the challenge was to get into the armor cab as quickly as possible in order to help the soldiers who were driving them. The situation is that the government doesn't really move fast, but they wanted to get it into production as quickly as possible. So they worked with the current producer of the cab, and we became the supplier of the cab. So I'm sorry, they worked with the truck producer, and we being the cab producer tagged along. So now all of a sudden we're armor on cabs. One of the initial findings we had was, of course, we never made anything out of armor plate. So what we had to do was take the situation and figure out how we were going to plan our way through introducing a product that we had no experience with. So we knew that there were some characteristics with armor that we needed to get more familiar with. By the way, some of the dimensional characteristics on this cab were extremely tight, because other armor was going to be bolted onto the cab we produced to provide another shield. And there were a number of what they called appurtenances that would be welded in various spots around this cab, on the floor, on all of the surfaces that things would be added onto at a later date. Now, being armor, you don't have the latitude to take a tool and simply bend your metal around to get the hole in that you need to match up with the appurtenance. So it all had to be done very accurately. With that, we set out to find out what was happening with armor. So we went to the Rock Island Arsenal, which is the neighbor down there, got hold of some armor and cut it. Of course, we had to find out how to cut it, and we found the plasma part where we did the best, and laser. The thing we had to avoid was excess dross, because you can't weld without removing it. And we also had to worry about the resultant metal that you had, because what we found when we brought in a sheet of armor was that it had swells and swales in it. I mean, it's not flat, like the tabletop you're sitting at. So we had to figure out how to keep the dimensional characteristics in unflat metal and finished product we had to have. At the same time, we had to have the right kinds of gaps and so on to weld. So we did a lot of experimentation. So we formed a team, and the team was made up of critical people who had the knowledge within our company, who needed to be a part of what was going on. So we just went to work. You know, we cut metal, we started welding it. The process, we estimated how much labor was involved, because we had to come up with the cost of the product. So, and we had to use that to determine how many weld fixtures we needed, because the volume was quite high. By the way, I haven't said this yet, but the initial estimate was we needed 115 MIG welders for this product. And the ongoing product, we had like 20 to 25 MIG welders. So we had a tremendous growth of personnel in that area. At the same time, companies like John Deere couldn't find MIG welders. And we had other products we could not find MIG welders for. So we had this tremendous issue out there that we had to address. I'll touch more on that a little bit later. So here we are, we're going through with our team, trying to determine how we're gonna cut it, how we're gonna prepare it for weld, and how we're gonna get it in the right position to weld it, and what wires we're gonna use to weld it, and how are we going to make sure that we end up with good integrity in the welds. So it took some time, but we met daily. Absolutely, every day, it got moving the ball further and further and further, and reached out to companies that we knew we would have